I could get you out of that zone of placing me in the basket of telemarketers. I've said the thing that you are most familiar with. You. And I said it better than you did. Also, it kind of sounds like I've been there before. So you're talking about conflict management and defense. I'm dropping your D from a 10 to a 6. And I just bought myself another 3 breaths of conversation. Usually you ask me who I am, but in a nice tone. And then there's the pleasantries, and then I give you the positive escalation, complimenting you verbally before you transfer me, doing it verbally and in writing when I do the follow-up email. And that's why you don't hate the call. You're making nice and making friends. And if somebody is having a bad day and they hang up on you, that's fine.
Welcome to Time-Tested Mastery Life Lessons Sell. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Richard Blank, CEO of Costa Rica's Call Center, and a telemarketing teacher who's trained more than 10,000 telemarketers. Richard's episode is for anyone who wants the real mechanics of performance, how you onboard people, build skill fast, handle conflict in live conversations, and create consistency without turning your team into robots. Richard's story is also a leadership story. He moved abroad at 27 from Philadelphia, started a company from scratch in Costa Rica, and has been leading Costa Rica's call center since 2008. He's lived the pressure of building something real, sustaining culture, and keeping standards high when the work is conversations, not theory. So today we're going to dig into the secret behind telemarketing training and onboarding in business. The routines, language, coaching, and structure that make people better on the phone while keeping trust intact and performance steady. We'll also hit something every leader is dealing with right now, the pros and cons of AI in sales and support. So my first question for you today, Richard, give us a quick version of your story. What led you to move abroad, build a call center from scratch, and devote your life to training people to perform in conversations?
When I was 27 years old, I had a 1 in a million opportunity to move here and work at a friend's center. So I got to test the waters a little bit. And Mark, in your travels, in all the offices you've been in, sometimes you feel like home. And the moment that I stepped off the plane and started my life here in Costa Rica, I felt like the sun was going to shine every day. And so by having that sort of wind in your sails and spring in your step, for some crazy reason, you get an extra 20% out when you're hitting the gym. And so what I saw at my friend's center, I said, I could do this. I could duplicate it, but I'm going to go old school it. I'd like to work with people where I know their name and to walk the roads and break bread with them and never compromise their ethics or values. And since English is their second language, and you really focus on this, is using very strategic and diplomatic vocabulary. So regardless of the market conditions or anything else that may be out there, that random variable, we're still very consistent. And it's offering the best first-class service. And so there always will be those soft skills, Mark, that we could fall back upon. And so that's the kind of foundation and the base that I was dealing with my call center, just being a little bit more advanced in regards to linguistics and interpersonal communication.
So not only were you training and teaching people to be good on the phone as a telemarketer, but you were teaching people that English was a second language. Is that correct?
Yes, Costa Ricans, Spanish is their first language, just like Spanish is my second language. And so you can start off with the bad words and the funny stuff and how to ask for beer and things like that. But if you really want to have good runs and to see how it could expand your life and experience and open many doors, you need to learn vocabulary and grammar. And you need to be more attentive with your listening skills and really focus on phonetics. And so anybody that's taken the time, the dedicated practice and the structure to learn a second language, in my opinion, regardless of the language mark, it bears the mark of higher education. And don't be ashamed or embarrassed of an accent. And in my professional opinion, I see it as a beauty mark. It's like Ricardo Montalban in Fantasy Island. It really was that added spice to his speech, which made you capture people's attention in a stronger way. And so hats off to anybody that's able to do such intensive focused concentration for 30-second to 5-minute segments to figure it out. It's almost like double gunning it. It's twice as much
Yeah.
pressure to try to do business in a second language.
Yeah. So I'm going to use the analogy because most of the people that listen to the podcast are related to the real estate industry. And so I'm going to focus on people that have not used the telephone as their primary method of communication, or they're new to the real estate business. So they're speaking a different language,
Mm-hmm.
speaking the real estate language when they're calling people. So
True.
you talked a lot about starting with new people. Where did you start with people when they just came into your organization? What do you start with?
Fear. You have to put it to bed. Some of the best movies are when someone stood up to their bully or asked their crush to dance, or, just as they say, having a coming of age moment. As long as you do things with good intentions and you're not aggressive, there's nothing wrong with building that skill. And so, funny thing is, prior to starting my call center, before working at my friend center and starting my own, there was a 2-year area where I was making phone calls for my brother's real estate company in Arizona. And so, my good friend, I know what it's like to call FISBOs on a Sunday, cancels and expires, calling for commercial land. But we can definitely talk about that. When you're in such competition, and I understand it's about percentage points if you're representing somebody or you're finding the buyer, but in order to get that appointment, you needed to make that connection. And for me, since I was calling on behalf of brokers, I was focusing more on the MLS, but more really on the photographs that they had in their home, because without trying to sound shady, but you're taking pictures of your inside of your house. And so if I see, something there with the Philadelphia Eagles on the wall, I'm definitely going to mention it. Or if you have a really
Right.
nice backyard with a pool, or you did something beautiful in the front of your house, or a really cool kitchen, I'm going to talk about those things. And you know what people are proud of. So instead of just trying to hustle an appointment, I was trying to compliment their tastes and just to see if I could find some goodies in the background that I could talk about how much I love dogs, because they love their puppies. And so those little things, my man, would reduce the defense and it'll give me at least 30 seconds to an extra 2 minutes worth of wiggle room to try to connect with the people, compared to just we're not interested hang up calls. So getting back to your question, people come into the call center. You have a wide range of individuals, Mark, just like you've
Mm.
experienced. You have the green freshmen that have never made a call before. And then you got the seasoned gray hair that may or may not have good habits. You never
Uh-huh.
know. And
Yeah.
so for me, the first things first, as I mentioned, learning a second language is 10 times harder than any campaign I'll put them on. And secondly, how about this, my man? You and I have never compromised our ethics or values to earn a dollar. We've been extremely selective of the businesses, campaigns, and sales we've done. Look at all the thousands of deals you have done. And so we had the opportunity and the leverage to choose, but we chose what we do because of multiple reasons. It might be lucrative or convenient, or once again, you're not selling your soul. And so I'm a guest here, and I just want to make
Yeah.
sure that I did the right thing. But so we got that out of the way. And then how about this, Mark? You're not going to believe this. I've seen what you've done, read about you and watched the videos, and you've said that of myself, and I appreciate that. And so imagine a green freshman at 18. They might be intimidated by that. That's not our fault. If you're not stealing, you shouldn't be afraid of a cop, or cheating being afraid of a teacher. Why would you be afraid of Mark or myself just because we're older than you and we have this experience? You should be the squire to a knight. And so, guess what, my man? And I'm sure you're the same. There's 3 or 4 checkpoints prior to them sitting in your training class. I'm not just bringing people off the street just to see. And so, these people need to have the right frame of mind. They need to be open minded. And it's not about critique, it's about growth. And the only reason that I'm able to do it, just like yourself, is it's our wheelhouse. We've done it. Not saying we're better than, but we've seen the pattern over decades. So we can share this with you. And that's where I come into play. I'm the bridge between the island. I'm the one
Mm.
that gets the wrinkles out. And I'm the one that when I'm on the phone call, looks over at my man Mark and gives him a high five or the gun, because I'm in the middle of a sale. I mean, you capture that magic in a bottle. And what happens is, and you know this from your favorite coach or teacher or best friend, you get to be there when someone sheds skin and has a
Yeah.
breakthrough and gets to that next level.
Yeah.
And that's what you and I do, my man. We pay it forward in that way. And so by having that sort of depth and interest in individuals' growth, I've been able to give them such strong foundations with me that when if I need to have the come to Jesus meeting where I need to call the balls and the strikes, don't listen. Because as you say, it's not critiquing. Give me a break, man. I've complimented you 99 times. This time you got more,
Yeah.
mustard on your face. I got to let you know because you're my boy. And
Yeah.
so when
Yeah.
you've had that sort of relationship, that's when you're able to get people to different levels of working with you.
That's awesome. There are several things that you said in that that really make sense to me. Number one is I've never sold anybody anything that they didn't want. Ethically, I didn't feel the need to do that. And the second thing that I really got out of, what you were sharing is how much you and I enjoy communicating with people and using the phone. To me, it is something that most people don't either want to do or they don't do well. So, can you share, what are the characteristics that make somebody good on the phone?
Most people fear public speaking more than death. Isn't that great? That means Mark and I will do it. Why?
Uh-huh.
Because fortune favors the brave, and I'll get more jewels and gold, and I'll be the hero of the story. Why do people hate making calls? Because it's got a bad rap, and Hollywood has glamorized it. And maybe the people, if I may be forthright, maybe setting you up to fail. Not saying you're not talented. I could put Mark on 100 lists, but depending on the list and the support, forgetting even the product, how old is the list? How updated is? What is this pipeline? How is it being worked? Who's in charge of what? And so many times, and I've read about your program, things fall through the cracks. So it's about building a solid pipeline, but that's not the point. You could really tee it up for somebody. You can give them a Glengarry lead where they're sitting by the phone with a credit card at the ready. Some, they just maybe, as you see in certain movies, they just filled out a form because they were somewhere and you're just trying to pitch them and it's a cold call. But I always believe in romantic deaths. Hear me out here. Regardless of what happens on a phone call, if I'm capable of saying time tested mastery podcast, how are you today? And I started out with a company Spike. Why? So I could use my initial anonymity to get you out of that zone of placing me in the basket of telemarketers. I've said the thing that you are most familiar with. You. And I said it better than you did. Also,
Mm,
it kind of sounds like I've been there before. So you're talking about conflict management and defense. I'm dropping your D from a 10 to a 6. And I just bought myself another 3 breaths of conversation. Usually you ask me who I am, but in a nice tone. And then there's the
right.
pleasantries, and then I give you the positive escalation, complimenting you verbally before you transfer me, doing it verbally and in writing when I do the follow-up email. And that's why you don't hate the call. You're making nice and making friends. And if somebody is having a bad day and they hang up on you, that's fine. Just jump a cloud, man. It's just 30 seconds of your time if that's what you decide to do. But if you're going to do it, wear comfortable shoes. There's
Yeah.
something interesting in the tarot cards. It's like the Fool card. You can still smell a rose while walking off a cliff with the sun in your face. There's a certain way to live. And so the most glorious deaths are the ones you've seen in the movies where they put their chests out and they take it because they know that that's just how it's going to be. And they give their best for 30 seconds of beautiful life. And if you can do that 100 to 300 times a day, don't be surprised. As you mentioned about pipelines, that things become more qualified and they move into a second or a third touch, or you finally sell for time where you get to call them back on a calendar, or you selling them for information. Those are beautiful subpars. You can do these things and you can separate the pile. and you find your consistency, and then you also kind of find you get good at it. Where you look at someone's LinkedIn profile, you review their websites, or you watch a video. And so when you call, you have 1,000 anchors to throw out there. And that's when you don't burn out, Mark. That's when you love making these calls, because you're going to separate yourself from the 1,000 other people doing them.
Yeah. I would share with you is that one of the reasons why, I mean, over my experience in my career, that people don't like telemarketers or they don't like cold calling is because they've only had experience with people that don't do it well. And you just sort of brought up, an interesting point that I think is important for people to recognize is your opening. How are you approaching that call from the very beginning? And you mentioned that you can do a little bit of a pre-homework, whether it's going to LinkedIn or whether it is knowing something about their home if you're in real estate, so that you have an interesting opening that will sort of diffuse any resistance and buy you time. Extra conversation. So can you talk about what the elements are, or how you train people to find those things to make the conversation start smoothly?
So smart. Buying time. A 10-minute phone call is 20, 30-second tie downs. You know that. There's 30 checkpoints. What do? You stay focused on the now. What does that mean? Stop going horizontal. Enough already. Go vertical. Mark talks about golf. We talk golf. You talked about the neighborhood. Why are you rushing? Talk about Mike's Pizza down the street and ask if his slices are good. Chum it up a bit. I mean, you're talking about looking at their homes. Look at it through Google Maps. It was around the neighborhood. My kids here, my kids there. Oh, yeah, did they go to the high school? They did. Oh, rock on the Panthers. Things like that. But that's not the point. It's really about paying attention. If you really want to know how to read these calls, it's about people's answering speeds. When you're cross-talking and you're interrupting, Mark, that means that you're grinding the gear. I don't know this individual. So who knows if he's looking something up, typing, readjusting. And so my suggestion in the first couple rounds of a fight is to feel the opponent out. You can do a jab or two, but don't think that you need to gas out, because a lot of what it is the defense to see your size, strength, and strategy. I'd like to know how you ask questions. Maybe the first question you ask is your priority. It's the fifth thing I was going to ask you, but that's your number one. So why don't you go to there and you start stacking those open-ended questions. And so I almost allowed you to lead my dance. You led my dance. So at the end, it's like, yeah, he solved it. It's like the Inspector Clouseau kind of thing. Like he got the credit at the end and the other guy was solving it, And so that's okay. As long as the ball goes in the end zone. And it's better that you win and you think about it. As long as I kind of guide you in the right direction to where the river is, we go swimming. And so that's the smart man. He's the rudder of your ship. And so when I'm on these conversations and they're talking about children, they're talking about larger or smaller homes, they're talking about 1,000 different things, I take those copious notes. And sometimes, as I say, you'll ask, subdispositions. You'll ask certain time frames. A lot of the times you're in such a rush, you forget about other decision makers, like a wife or a husband that needs to be there, or a certain attorney that needs to talk about it. And when you don't sound pushy, that's nice, because the worst is giving someone an interrogation because all of a sudden they got to go and hang up. Compared to when this, it flips around and they start asking you questions. That's when you know you got them. And so that's why I'm telling you to slow down. If you got 10 great questions to ask about the house, fine. Just take until you know when to go into vertical and ask the open-ended till there's no more. And then rake it one more time by saying, before we move on, Mark, are you sure you have no more questions about that sports court in the backyard or the funny green? And they're like, yeah, one more question. If I do this and this and this, can I knew it. You hedge your bet.
There's several things that you said there that I think are really important for me to point out to the listeners today. You used the phrase open-ended questions, which allows people to provide you a lot of information. which is critical when you are selling. When you're helping somebody make a decision, the more information you have about their true motives and their true needs is important. So open-ended questions will give you all kinds of information. And the beauty of it is that if you ask short questions, you have to ask 100 questions to get the same information that if you ask 5 really good open-ended questions and let them elaborate. It's almost like peeling an onion. You just let, one layer after. You ask one question and you just go with them and let the onion open up for you. I mean, that's really a beautiful thing. The other part is there's a lot of resistance, and people don't have resistance when they're talking about themselves. And it sounds like you're encouraging that quite a bit.
You are. There's a way, and you mentioned that you can manipulate learning, not the conversation, but if it's an open-ended question and you're talking, it gives me a chance to listen to how you speak for a minute. Are you always yelling? Are you just a yeller? Are you a person that just likes to curse? Or are you a person that does loud whispering, or do you pause too much? So then you see that pattern. Maybe when you first answer, hello, you're like, oh, this guy's going to kill me. But then after the 5th question, you're like, he's a pussycat. And so it allows you to see through a neutral question how somebody answers it. So then when you have to ask that, as you say, more important question, are we having the appointment, signing the contract, the special ones, then you can see the temperature going up or down compared to the first 4 questions that he answered for you. So I need for you to pay attention to a couple things. The rate of speech, how fast or slow he goes. Doesn't matter. Either word could win from a yes to a no. And then how loud they are to how soft they speak. As I say, a screamer could buy, a whisperer could say, oh no.
Yeah.
So just kind of pay attention to the spikes and the dips if you're asking neutral questions compared to the closing questions, because not every question mark will get you the same sort of response in regards to speed and sound, if that makes any sort of sense.
That's awesome. So what mistake do you see most telemarketers doing? Then share, how you help them overcome that.
Well, the first one is they don't want to do it. But if they are doing it, they're not listening. They'll miss the mark. There's always that one golden moment on every phone call. And if you capture it, it's lightning. It's magic. You got the call. You missed it. Imagine if you didn't hear the dog barking in the background because I'm talking to Joey or was spacing out. You find ways to connect. And so, as I say before, if you don't want to make these calls, and I'm not going to force you to do it, you should find another line of work. But if you have the heart to do it and you're willing to play the long game, kind of like the old school people that would canvas and knock on door to door, selling encyclopedias or whatever, hats off to those people. I mean, that's a hardcore sales individual. I've done that before. I used to sell candy bars for my little league, so I know what it's like to walk the street, but I was cute, so I was making a lot of sales. But imagine the rejection rate or the success rate. It builds character. You have to understand, you and I are realistic. It's very rare that somebody is with you for 10 years, let alone 30 to 40 to get those gold watches. In my industry, where the attrition rate is 6 months, you're lucky if someone's with you at all. And so the greatest gift that you and I could do is to give them something to take with them. They can always make money. If I get them to become better speakers. And so what do? We look at the thesaurus. So I can change a word. I'll give you a good one for an example. I can adjust a tone. I'll take out the word help and I'll use assist, guide, or lend a hand, depending on the stage of the relationship. I hate the word help. Assisting, guide. Come on, Mark, let's lend a hand to this guy. And then instead of excuse me or I'm sorry, which all of a sudden is a rabbit hole, you say, hey, Mark, for my clarification, was it A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3? And so it's like sacrificing a pawn or falling on a sword. I'm still able, you're talking conflict management earlier, I'm still able to keep the tone positive, because how many times has someone said they're sorry to you on a call and you're like, it wasn't even you, it was the guy that I spoke to like 3 weeks ago when I called your company. It's not fair when people have to jump on that grenade. I don't like things like that. And so
Yeah.
the greatest thing somebody can do is to be heard, or if you repeat back what somebody says so you understand it. And if you really want the $1 million information, why don't you repeat information with the military alphabet? Because chances are someone is served when you're calling. And so if you're just confirming spellings of last names or street names and stuff, and just do the military. And people say, yeah, he served back in here and there. And you get to talk about it. And so that's always been my Hail Mary. And I've probably hit that about 30% of the time. People usually bring it up that they served.
Okay.
Before the call ending, now you're talking to Master Sergeant about his call. So instead of the call going 2 minutes, now you're on 7 minutes. My man Mark got another 5.
Yeah.
That's all because they're black and blue from terrible phone calls. And so, as I say before, you just find a way to be authentic. Then chances are they'll just, as you say, give you more time.
Yeah. So what, for your people, what does practice look like?
Oh, we have the luxury of technology. I mean, the first time I think we were able to listen to ourselves was like 1856 where that woman was singing in French. But back in our day, it was a tape recorder, sometimes reel to reel. Now people can record themselves on the phone. And so everybody claims to not like how they sound. Well, you also have a mirror. Do you like how your hair looks? Did you miss a spot? This is what you got. And so there are ways to make it where it's more soothing, where you don't sound like you're yelling. And just you might enjoy what's given to you. And so what I'm asking the people to do is to record themselves. And I want themselves to listen as they're rating their pitch. I also want them to watch certain things on the television, certain really good rhetoric shows where they can first watch it without sound and then they watch it without sight. And then they can combine the two for the third. But it would be very interesting to see if they can dissect the body language into what's going on. And then after having those images, then listen to or switching it around and going either way. And so we're just working on phonetic skills because not every conversation will be crystal clear with noise canceling headsets, Mark. We might be in a bar somewhere, on a train, on a plane. There could be screaming everything's around us. So how am I going to get you, man? Especially if it's my second language. And so I'm trying to get the people to get 30, 40% of a conversation and reading body language, seeing what's around them, and then figuring it out if I know what's going on. So it's a good play.
Awesome.
You're juggling. That's what you do.
Yeah. Well, let me ask that because I mean, there's questions that come up as you've brought that up. So when you're talking with your people, you want them to record themselves so that they can listen to themselves to find ways to get better. But then you went into good rhetoric that is visual. So talk about how the body language, seeing the body language without the sound, and then how the sound and the body with the body language gone, how does that help people get better at, because I think there's a way, it's in here, it's imagination. But from your perspective, how has that helped them?
Great question. You do have an amazing podcast, Mark. Real quick, we have KPIs, key performance indicators, and a QA department, quality assurance. So we have a department that listens to their phone calls and just grades them as, the nuts and the bolts. I'm talking about the soft skills. So when you say record themselves, man, if you go and you record yourself outside the office, that's dedicated. That's like Mr. Miyagi Danielson sort of stuff. You did it on your own time. I'm not asking you to throw a lot of time into it, but that's when you show that sort of commitment. So if people work on that, they can do it anytime, any place. Remember the old movies that didn't have sound? Yeah, they probably put some words on the screen every now and again, but most of it was just some acting. And you can almost, when someone is telling you a message, someone you love, someone you know so well, their body language speaks 10 times louder than any single word they can say to you. Touching your hand, a hug, looking in your eyes, that extended look, whatever, man, whatever. That's the
Yeah.
sort of electromagnetic transfer of energy between human beings. And it's almost like, let's say I see you at a rock concert, and you're like, man, you still share the energy, and there's that conversation that happens there. But why are we doing this? Because most of us are on our phone. While we're here presently, our mind is elsewhere. And it sometimes makes it difficult for people to concentrate in the now.
Mm.
And so by watching this communication, they might be more self-aware of how people see them and how they might see themselves. And so
Yeah.
it's almost like charm school. Remember how people would walk with books on their head, or your parents would tell you to sit up straight or chew with your mouth closed? And so
Right.
these are certain ways that people can seem more poised and polished when in social situations.
Yeah. I absolutely love the sales business and communication, because so many things that you're talking about have been a part of the fabric of my training over the years. One of my coaches talked about taking acting classes, and that's where I made that connection with looking at the body language with the television without the sound, is that so much of what we do communicates so much louder than our voices do. Our tone of voice means a lot more sometimes than the words do. And I can tell
Yes.
by your presentation that you have really practiced all of those little details that make effective communication so powerful. And that's what salespeople need to bring to the table. And this will be a little bit off script, a little bit, is that I do a lot of my sales training and a lot of my meetings today on Zoom. And I find that so many people, I see the black box on Zoom meetings. And I keep talking to salespeople saying, my gosh, you're in the people connection business. And the greatest asset that you have is that smile that's on your face, that
Yeah.
enthusiasm that's in your tone of voice, and you're hiding behind a black box. And I'm thinking, you've got the opportunity to practice all day long in these meetings, and you're eating a sandwich. I don't know what they're doing, but they're not making the connection, which is what it is required, especially when you're talking with people.
They're just distracted. Their kids, their family, dinner, bills. It's very difficult for you and I to tell them to snap out of it and stay focused. But you might not have a choice, because if you're just putting 66% in every time you're walking in there and not even paying attention, you're going to get knocked out. And so
Yeah.
you might need just to separate the two, or put on the cape, become Superman. But it's interesting. It's like when you put on the suit, you get into character. You sitting there in front of all your awards in the background, you're where you need to be in order to perform. And so maybe your audience can have some sort of ritual or lucky
Mm.
charm, or something that can allow them to snap into who they need to be in order to fulfill what they need to do that day. Yeah.
I love that preparation, and I love the practice, and I love getting, my mindset in it. Share with the audience today, what's the one most important thing that you would advise anyone that is going to make their living communicating over the phone? What's the most important thing that they need to address?
Your environment, it needs to be clean. You need to have some sort of structure around that desk. If there are things there that motivate you, that's great. You can manipulate through senses. You can burn some sort of incense or some oils. You can adjust the lighting, or you can go with natural light. Instead of sitting down, and you can dial when you're sitting, but when you get somebody on the phone, you should stand up. You'll get another 15% out of that. And don't do long runs. Like, you can make calls for 10 to 12 hours a day. I have no problem with that. But just don't sit for a solid 6. Get up every couple hours at least, just for a stretch, drink some water, do something. And that's just a way to be able to pace yourself.
Yeah. Well, we also teased in the introduction that we were going to talk about AI and how that is a factor that all leaders and all sales organizations are dealing with now. What are your thoughts on that?
Definitely think it's going to make certain industries easier. It's like a kiosk when you're ordering food or at the airport or at the supermarket. It did take away jobs, but it's quicker for some people, more convenient. In my industry, Mark, it's going to replace a lot of the entry level agents that do gathering or just simple information confirmation. And if people are comfortable enough to put in information or confirm things, yes, you can definitely replace agents there. But it will never be able to replace empathy. There have been times that you wanted to speak with somebody to retain you as a client or to give you a referral or who knows. But if my business is that important, I expect somebody to be there to give a little stroking, let me know that I'm important. But no, in my industry and in time, and it will be soon, they'll probably be able to replace 80% of the industry when it comes to troubleshooting customer support. I think the only time it won't be is when it's PCI compliant or HIPAA compliant, where you do need to speak to somebody live for banking or for health. But I think the majority of the rest, ordering a car part or something with Amazon, yeah, that could easily be replaced. So the people that you do get will be super first class Division One, polished and top dollar. And so do I see the writing on the wall? It depends how you look at it. It's kind of like Zorba the Greek. I'll just put my arms out and
Yeah.
start dancing regardless of the ship. And so it's been a good run. I appreciate anybody that off the phone likes the art of speech. I tell you what, my man, you'll always appreciate the violinist in the town square compared to 1,000 different things that AI produces, or there's someone that does the silhouette with chalk. Humans will always appreciate other humans' abilities and art. And so I'm not worried about that. There will always be a market for people that want to speak with others.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and as we race towards a digital world and an AI world, the one thing that I know that a machine can't do is be human. And so that's really a wake up call for all of us to build our soft sales skills, our emotional intelligence, and simply be more human beings rather than human doings, because the machines are going to be doing it a lot faster than we are. So we really need to be more human beings than human doings. So I can appreciate everything that you've shared today. I'll leave the audience with a way that they can work with you in the future or learn more about what you're doing, if that's something that they have an interest in following through.
I appreciate that. Most people don't like telemarketers, so just being here on the show is great. I just have people fear it. I'm only teasing. But anyway, have your audience buy a first-class plane ticket, fly down to Costa Rica, come visit me. I got a lot of suggestions. It's a great place to be. But no, if anybody wants to send me a script and say, Mark recommended you, take a look at it. I'll be more than happy to run through it and make some suggestions, but I can't thank you enough. And I think your audience should be bold and brave. Look at yourself in the mirror, make your bed in the morning. Telemarketing, there's bad actors in any industry. It's just telemarketing. Why do they tease it? Because most people are afraid of it because they wish they had the guts to do it. Because there's nothing more fulfilling than making a cold call than having a new good friend. And so if you're willing to take that chance, if you're willing to do this in business anyway, you might as well go really hit it hard and go for it and do very well in this. And so make Mark and I proud, and keep focusing on those soft skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for those people that say that telemarketing is not good or doesn't work, I can assure you that I grew up as a kid that didn't know how to sell my way out of a cardboard box. And I started cold calling at the beginning. I mean, I'm talking real cold calling. Cold calling, that's how I started my business. And I can share with people that calling people on the phone works if you're good at it. If you're lousy at it, you're wasting your time and you're wasting their time. But if you take the time to really build the skills, you don't have a whole lot of competition as a telemarketer. in the sales business, in the real estate business, that's for sure. So I so much appreciate your time today and look forward to hearing the feedback that I get from the people that listen to our episode today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark.
If you got value out of this episode, here's your assignment. Pick one thing Richard said about training, one standard, one habit, one structure, and install it this week. Not learn it, install it, because skill compounds when you practice it under real conditions. Richard, I want to thank you for bringing the earned experience, practical, specific, and field tested. And to our listeners, if you know a business owner, team leader, or salesperson who's trying to improve results without hype, share this episode with them. And if you haven't yet, follow Time Tested Mastery Life Lessons Sell so you don't miss what's coming next. I'm Mark Dolan. See you next time.